Welcome back, everyone, and I will tell you now, this is, in my opinion, going to be one of the better episodes that focuses on characters, which is my favorite part of storytelling. So make sure you like and subscribe so we can keep going deeper into the Twilight Zone. We begin back in the old Western times, but I don't think we ever get a exact date, with our main character of the story, the alcoholic Denton, being thrown out of a bar and bullied into performing for another drink. As he is downing a drink from a broken bottle, Liz, a woman who knew who he used to be, just looks at him feeling sorry for what he has become. Then we see him just writhe in pain on the ground, hating his addiction and how everyone looks upon him with either disgust or pity. He wakes up and finds a gun sitting on the ground, and he just kind of examines it for a minute. Liz asks him if he's carrying a gun now, but we see a curious pause as he is talking, and he says he can't remember when he last shot a gun, or when his drinking started, but I will talk more about that when we discuss his character later. Dan comes out and forces Denton to humiliate himself in front of Liz again, but then stops him seeing he has a gun in his hand. He then tries to force him into a duel, but Denton accidentally shoots his left hand, and everyone starts to congratulate him, most likely happy he stood up for himself and put Dan, the troublemaker that he is, in his place. Dan then storms in, not letting go, and basically tells him to go again or he'll kill him anyway. Denton once again accidentally shoots a chandelier in the bar, disarming Dan, and for the first time in a while, someone calls him Mr. Denton, actually showing him respect. He then refuses a free drink, saying he's had enough. Then fully standing up to Dan, backhanding him, telling him to stop calling him Rummy, and goes to get a shave. Liz stops him as he is walking out, and she makes him recall how good he was with a gun, having a challenger every day until he realized he killed a young 16-year-old man and realized what he was doing. He then gets very pessimistic, saying it will all now start over again, and it will only stop once he is face down in the dirt like the young man he killed was. We cut to the same day at night, Denton now clean shaven, and unfortunately some men come to his door, telling him he already has a challenger coming tomorrow night. We see him try to practice shooting, but his aim is terrible and his hands constantly shake. He plans on fleeing the town, but he sees a peddler outside and goes to talk to him, and he introduces himself as Henry J. Fate. He tells him what he sells and says he shouldn't run away because he has a potion that will help him. Denton tries it and hits his target without even thinking. Mr. Fate tells him he can keep it for free, but just remember the moment Fate stepped in. Denton waits at the bar, worrying on what the outcome is going to be, as his opponent Pete Grant enters into town. Pete barges into the bar and gets straight to business, issuing a challenge. Denton takes a swig of his potion, and he sees Pete do the same thing, and they both stare at each other with the looks on their faces, saying, "Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!" They both draw and hit each other's shooting hand, crippling them both, and making sure both of them can't quick draw anymore. Pete and his gang leave, and Denton walks outside, giving Mr. Fate a knowing nod as he leaves town. First, I'm going to tackle Mr. Fate, played by Malcolm Atterbury, who passed in 1992 at the age of 85. I see him as some kind of cosmic entity, twisting the fate of people, teaching them a lesson. It's like a more positive version of a Zinchian demon from Warhammer, enjoying the show of seeing how a man will deal with getting a second chance at life. And ultimately, Denton is better off from where he started at the beginning of the episode, and Pete will not have to go through the painful road Denton did. Now, let's talk about Dan.
Dirty Dan.
I'm Dirty Dan.
played by Martin Landau, who passed in 2017 at the age of 89 and had such a good career, he got a star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame as well. I loved how wild he got with his acting in his role because it definitely made it pretty memorable. Now, Dan seemed to be the menace of the town, with everyone being afraid of him, and when they tried to stand up to him, he would bully them back into submission. And then there's how he treats Denton, loving how he can torment and control him because of his addiction, basically being his clown, even calling him Rummy because of his alcohol problem. But when he sees that Denton has a gun, and probably knows how good he was in the past, he jumps at the chance to humiliate him, and possibly get even more of a reputation saying he beat him in a shootout. But he was not expecting to be humiliated, not once, not twice, but 3 different times by Denton. Getting his hand shot, having a chandelier fall on him, and then to top it all off, getting bitch slapped by Denton. We don't see him for the rest of the episode, so I presume his ego got crushed so thoroughly that he just wasn't a problem for the town anymore. Or him and his gang just left out of shame. Then comes the man of the hour, Mr. Denton. He is played by Dan Duray, who really got across the broken man aspect of Denton. My favorite scene being when he was writhing on the ground, seeing where his life is now. But let's get into his character. He was basically the best gunslinger around back in his day, and even back then he did drink right before he would duel. But when he saw that he killed a young man who probably had a long life ahead of him, he despaired, now realizing how many people he has killed or lives he cut short. And to cope with all of this, he started heavily drinking and did not pick up a gun for years afterwards, becoming the town drunk with Dan humiliating him and everyone else pitying him because they knew the kind of man he was in the past. We see when he finally picks up a gun again, he can't recall last time he used one. And when Liz asks him why he drinks so much, he just says one day he picked up the habit, wanting to suppress his memory of his painful past that he does not want to remember, because we see him pause for a second before he answers her. But once he finally stands up to Dan and gains his respect back in the town, for a moment he thinks he can get his life back together, but then he realizes that his past will just come back to haunt him again. And eventually he's going to end up like the kid he shot, bleeding out on the ground. He does at least try to get back in the swing of things, practicing his aim, but his hands tremble too much, which, if I'm correct, is a thing that happens with alcoholics and drug users if they don't have enough of it in their system, because their body has gotten so used to having it for over the years. He gets some hope in Mr. Fate's potion, but still hates that he has to duel someone and possibly kill them. But once he sees they both have it, they both cripple themselves, and he reassures the young man that this is a blessing, glad that he doesn't have to go through the pain he did, and that he won't die in a duel like his other opponents. Denton honestly was a well-written character with a good arc in the episode. I would love to know what you guys thought about him. So in summary, this was probably my favorite episode so far, with great characters, life lessons, and great acting in it as well. I hope you guys enjoyed, so please make sure you like the video and subscribe to see more of this with me. I will see you guys later, once we dive back in to the Twilight Zone. Bye guys.